I don't think the game was a lot different than we thought it would probably be. We suspected that one or two things might happen, and we knew that the Rebels would come out really hard and fast. And probably that first 15 minutes, I don't know what Brad felt like on the field, but it certainly looked from the coach's box as physical and as fast as any game as we've had this year. But we had a reasonably good idea if we'd stay in the contest for any length of time that our conditioning and might take over, and probably did in the end. I mean, we were down 19-8 and then scored 42 unanswered points, so that was telling in the end.
Yeah, I think it's just a credit to the way we prepared it during pre-season, and I think a massive part of that is just our composure. And when we're under the pump like we were feeling the heat, but it's how we stay composed and how we stick to what we do well and sort of flip the pressure around. And I think, as you say, in that the last sort of 7 minutes of that half, we sort of just did the basic stuff really well.
The attack he's given you on the ways.
But generally for wingers, the work's done on the inside and then they've just got to finish. Now, having said that, he's finished particularly well. And when you're big, strong, fast, powerful, it's a pretty good combo. And I first came across Ben in 2010 and around the New Zealand under-20s, 2011, sorry, and around the New Zealand under-20s, and Ben's always promised a lot and had a spell into the New Zealand sevens and then come back into 15s. And we're really delighted that he's realising some of the potential that he's got, because he's a wonderful player.
How do you see the Rebels in the season, or was something that maybe for the future?
I don't really know enough about. I know that there was I loosely used the word in the New Zealand media around an amalgamation between the Western Force and the Rebels, and that seems to be where it come from. And I know that David Vessels is well considered as a coach, so they've had a terrific start to the season, but they've got some pretty tricky games coming up, and so I think for them, I think they've got the Jaguares at home and then travel to Africa. I think the next 3 or 4 weeks will tell where they're at. Great start, but they'll need to press on to stake a realistic claim.
Can I ask a similar question just in the context of Australian rugby? I mean, there was obviously a lot of talk this week about you somewhat impressed. Do you think a standard might have raised? I'm not sure.
I definitely felt like that, and I suppose with a team, when you have a couple of big wins like that, the momentum starts and the enjoyment starts, and you start to believe in a process. So definitely that first 30 minutes was just as physical as playing a New Zealand derby, and it's how you got to sort of hang in against these Aussie teams for the first sort of phase, and then sort of back yourself that you can do what you do well and consistently. But I think it was definitely some heat. It's just, I think I've got as far as I can there.
If you look at that though, if you were sitting in the Rebels situation, they were in control of the game potentially against the Waratahs, and then got blown away in the back end of that game, and they got a really good start against us and weren't able to hang on either. So that's twice now that they've had good starts and haven't been able to hold on to that start and turn it into a win. So David and his crew will probably be sitting there and saying, okay, we've got part of it right, how do we get the other part, the other bit right? We don't put any boundaries on our players really. I thought we were actually, Brad and I talked last week about a couple of penalties that we didn't take, and I thought, we haven't talked about this yet, so this will be a surprise for him, but I thought we were a little bit conservative tonight. We took a couple of penalties when maybe we could have had a crack, and I think it's really important that the players are empowered to make decisions. I was really encouraged at the end there a couple of times when the Rebels showed us a defensive picture deep inside our own 22, and we chose to run the ball out, and that was the correct decision given the picture that it had given us. So we really encourage them to make their own decisions.
You're confident that the game is
No, he took a wee bang on the ankle, and again, I got a lot of faith in Ehire West. He's a great little footballer, and he's a really good closer. And you know, Bodie's Bodie, so you know he's a great footballer. But I have a lot of time for Ehire, so I think we haven't got an enormously long season, but I think you have to, you know, to do well in the competition, you have to have faith in a lot more people than 15, and certainly 23 is not enough either. So I think it was a good opportunity for some of those guys to come in and get some minutes and do particularly well.
But nothing serious?
Say again?
Nothing serious with Bodie? No,
I don't think so. Well, I think probably in the 4 years that, well, certainly for Brad and I, the time we've been in the Hurricanes, we prepared incredibly well for that game and delivered zero. So, well, you know, I mean, one of the things when you look in the rear vision mirror and reflect back on what went right or what went wrong, I couldn't fault the preparation for the pre-season. You know, we were doing altitude chambers to try and get used to the high velt and training in the heat. We went to camp in the heat, and it was all around getting that first part of the season right, because I know that if you get a good start to the season, it's important. So we prepared really well for that, but I'm not sure whether Brad could shed some light on that, but we just had a flat performance, and you know, in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, that kick in the pants for us like it was in 2016, we got spanked by the Brumbies in Canberra, 50 points or something, and Phil Kearns very kindly said that, you know, we were fat and overweight and useless and stuff, and that was a really good spur for us, you know. And so maybe the poor performance against the Bulls might also be the kick in the teeth that we needed to you know, get our focus right and make sure that we're doing what we need to do best.